美国时事通，我是罗文。今天是2024年10月16号星期三。那今天还有另外一期哈，因为这个选战很关键，我现在几乎是日夜加班在做关于选战的工作哈。我也希望大家能够齐心一起来努力把川普送到白宫。那今天还有一个非常大的消息，就说 Maria Adelson， 这是川普的一个大金主哈，他刚刚捐了9500万美金给川普的 Super PAC 哈，他就表示说他会 do whatever， 做无论任何事情帮助川普拿到总统之位哈。这是临到选战20天。那另外一个大金主的一个宣言哈，他完全的捍卫川普的任何行为，他不惜做任何事情，那包括使尽他所有的钱去帮川普拿到总统之位哈，这非常非常大的一个消息，也非常的了不起。当然大选我们在说有很多法律战争夺什么是公平公正的选举的时候哈，民主党也有他们的一套。那当他们一直在说我们说大选诚信有问题是阴谋论的时候，那现在随着川普的这个民调逐渐的走强，那民主党人也有一番论调，他们也有自己的阴谋论，我们可以看一下他的阴谋论哈，我觉得非常的可笑。就是 MSN 的 Joy Reid 居然在他的节目里表示哈，共和党有阴谋哈，他们把民调做得很高。你看在2020年和2022年，他们突然出现了很多共和党的这个民调公司哈，你看宾州就有10多个，然后他们就在大选前就dump出了很多共和党走强的一个民调哈，试图来混淆视听，他觉得我们是在混淆视听哈，而不是说他们的民调有问题。那总之他说，那这样的话他们就造成一个假象，就去 gaslight 民众，让他们去投票。那假设他们投票他们仍然输了的话，他们就会说你看民调都显示我赢了，然后他们就会拒绝认证选举哈，这就是他们的一套逻辑。我们可以看一下 Joy Reid 怎么说的。
Have you noticed how sharply the polls have shifted in Trump's favor over the last couple weeks? With these claims that Trump is surging with black and Latino voters and leading in every single swing state, according to secret internal polls, despite all the Hitler talk? Yes, this race will be far too close. Because unfortunately, we do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear, but in small pockets among black and brown men too. This happens to be a global phenomenon as women become more economically independent and seek positions of power. But friend of the show Simon Rosenberg points out that just like in 2020 and 2022, dozens of right-wing polls have been dumped into the marketplace in the last few weeks, 12 in Pennsylvania alone. Those polls then swing the polling averages to the right, making Trump look strong and Kamala Harris look stalled. Now, there are lots of explanations for why you'd want to game the polls. Entrepreneurial Republican pollsters can certainly gain favor with Trump, who's apparently fuming about Vice President Harris's billion-dollar fundraising and positive press. And then there's the more sinister explanation that if Trump, Republican pollsters, and even jittery Democrats convince enough people that his victory is inevitable, how much easier would it be to claim that the election was stolen if he loses? And how much easier would it be to get his base to rise up and maybe even get violent the way they did when he lost the last time? How much easier would it be to get the Republican House Speaker or John Roberts and the right-wing Supreme Court conservatives to throw the election to Trump? These are the things we need to consider. Donald Trump is not running a normal election. He's talking America into a civil war to terrify voters into supporting him. And if that doesn't work, he's laying the groundwork for insurrection 2.0.
这个 Joy Reid 是我最讨厌的一个主持人哈，他之前不是这么一个小短发哈，因为他之前留了一个偏分的一个金发，他很奇怪，一个黑人老是弄一个金发哈，这个不是文化剥夺是什么？按照左派的理解哈，一个白人如果在万圣节戴了一个黑人的假发或者一个黑人的面具的话，你就是文化剥夺。那你黑人弄个金发，你不是文化剥夺是什么？而且他这个偏分哈，所以有记者就追着他问说：“你这个发型是学川普的吗？”然后他就说：“你这个白痴！”就骂了很粗话，我们也可以看一下。
I think people with Trump derangement syndrome know they have it.
You're an idiot.
And second question, did you steal Trump's haircut? Did he steal yours? Cultural appropriation haircut right there. She didn't like that too much.
所以自那之后，他的发型就变了哈，他就变成这个黑人的小板寸哈，我这么叫他哈。总之，那这个非常令人厌恶的人，他多次说川普是希特勒，他在川普受到2次暗杀之后还说川普是个希特勒，就是这么糟糕的一个女人哈。我觉得这才是左派的阴谋论，他们不仅没有反省说为什么他们拿不到黑人的选票，为什么民主党会恐惧，为什么民调在走低，反而他在说这是共和党的阴谋。那当然大家听到媒体说共和党人是阴谋论的时候，我觉得真的才有必要审查一下这个民主党阴谋论的始作俑者。当然这一期我觉得重点是要讲经济问题哈，那经济是选民关注的首要的议题。那昨天川普就在芝加哥的这个经济俱乐部接受了一个非常重要的采访，而且是被 Stephen Miller 称为美国政客对经济最有见地的一个采访哈，历史上这是非常高的一个赞誉。那因为很多美国总统他其实不是很懂经济的，他要不就是政客，他基本上没有从商的哈。因为从商如果赚了很多钱，特别有经验，你可能都不来搅这个浑水哈。只有川普为了这个国家，他才毅然出马去竞选总统。所以他面对 Bloomberg 这个主编的诘问的时候，他是非常非常犀利的哈。这就是我今天想重点跟大家分享的一个内容。那首先经济问题的话，主持人就问川普说你提高关税不是会有很大的影响吗？我们看一下川普是怎么回答的哈。
You're also talking about 10-20% tariffs on the rest of the world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive in terms of the economy.
I agree it's going to have a massive effect, positive effect. It's going to be a positive, not a negative.
Well, just
let me just let me tell you. I know how committed you are to this, and it must be hard for you to spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative, and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong. It'll have a negative. It will have. I'll go a step further.
40
if
million,
you don't
40
do
million,
this,
President
this
Trump,
country
40 million jobs is a lot of jobs to rely on.
They're all coming back.
Those are 40 million jobs. Those are 40 million jobs in America that rely on trade.
Are you ready? John Deere, great company. They announced about a year ago they're going to build big plants outside of the United States, right? They're going to build them in Mexico.
And you threatened them with tariffs and they stopped.
That's right. I said, if John Deere builds those plants and not selling anything into the United States, they just announced yesterday they're probably not going to build the plants, okay? I kept the jobs here.
这个关税一直是民主党左派媒体攻击川普的一个重要的内容之一哈。但是关于关税的话，实际上川普的过渡团队的主席 Howard Lutnick 说的非常的好，他接受 CNBC 的采访，他说那关税的话，很多人就觉得我们加了关税会怎么样，他说这只是川普的一个谈判策略哈。你德国、日本，你对我的汽车收100%的关税，所以我的福特、我的汽车卖不过去给你，对不对？为什么你可以对我收100%的关税啊，我不可以？他说这个是很久以前的一个历史，就二战之后，美国人是希望重建日本、重建德国，帮助他重建，就说我一挥手，你们可以对我的产品征税，但是我不可以对你的产品征税哈。所以这是为什么？那日本、德国的车全部都起来了，那我们的车就卖不到欧洲去。他说很简单，那二战这么多年，大家都繁荣起来了，我们完全可以取消这个，我们为什么还在遵守这个原则？他说这是非常荒谬的哈。然后那当然，他说如果是一个紧缺的商品，假设我们美国根本都不能生产的商品的话，我根本也不会跟他征税哈。那他说其实提征税也是一个策略，当你提出征税的话，他们不会想到说我要怎么样哈制裁你，反而他们就会回去说要不我把你的税降低吧。所以他有两个路，要不就是他把他们自己的关税取消，美国产品可以卖到他们市场，要不就是说可以征税，那我们可以得到大笔的钱去补助我们相关的产业哈。所以无论是哪一个结局都是非常好的一个事情，他非常好的阐述了川普为什么要加关税这一点哈。所以我们也可以看一下这一段视频，非常的发人深省。
You talked to the former president about tariffs. Do you see it as a bargaining chip, or do you think you're going to see tariffs across the board of 20%?
I think we should put tariffs on stuff we make and not put tariffs on stuff we don't make. It's pretty simple. And of course it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan? 100% tariffs. So do you think if we said we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound, Andrew? That sounds...
Of course they're going to come down. Of course. This is just negotiating.
It absolutely makes sense. If you do it strategically, if it's across the board, it creates a real problem. And the question is whether you believe the president is going to do it strategically or across the board. He keeps saying it across the board.
Well, when you're running for office, you make broad statements so people understand you.
Right.
Okay? Tariffs are an amazing tool by the president to use. They're an amazing tool, but he understands don't tariff stuff we don't make. Right? If we don't make it and you want to buy it, I don't want to put the price up there. It's pointless. But use tariffs to build in America. If we want to make it in America, tariff it. Or if we're competing with it, tariff it. But you got to remember, we need to protect the American worker. Finally, someone's going to protect the American worker. And Donald Trump is here to protect the American worker.
Do you think we make a lot of money in tariffs? Or if they're used as negotiating tactics, look, tariffs will come down there. We're not going to have super high tariffs here either. There's not going to be a big pot of money at the end of the day.
I love that story. So which is it? Do we make a lot of money on tariffs, or we bring productivity here and we drive up our workers here? So it's a win-win scenario. I like both of them. I think what's going to happen is we'll make a bunch of money on the tariffs, but mostly everybody else is going to negotiate with us, and we will be more fair. In 1948, right, we came up with something called the Marshall Plan, right? The world, Germany and Japan were destroyed after World War II, and we wanted to export our economy to them. So we made a rule. They could tariff us, and we won't tariff them. So they can rebuild. This is the
best explanation I've heard of.
So they can rebuild their economy. We rebuilt their economy using something called the Marshall Plan. Our economy is so awesome that we'll use it to help you rebuild. When should that have ended? What do you think, 1980? Right? 1985? I mean, why 40 years are Japan and Germany and all of Europe still tariffing the heck out of our auto industry, tariffing the heck out of our furniture industry? Do you realize all your furniture you're buying that's made foreign? It seems crazy. Why? It's because they tariff us and we don't tariff them. It's so obvious.
这个就从历史源头上解释了我们为什么要做这件事，以及到目前为止我们这种政策的荒谬之处，再一次的印证了川普的伟大之处。他们还谈到了纽森，川普称纽森是人渣。
How about this? Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of California.
Newsom.
He signed Newsom, I call him.
But do you think?
No, he corrected me. He corrected me. I said, that's the first time I've been corrected.
There are CEOs out here. If they said those sort of things about a rival CEO, they'd be sacked. Do you think it's fine for a president?
But they don't have to survive like me. They don't have to go through what I have to go through. There's never been a president that's been treated like me, so I have to fight my own way.
Well, you made a very good job of.
He signed a bill in California 2 days ago that you don't even have the right to ask a person for voter ID. And if you ask a person for voter ID, of course you have to show voter ID. The only reason you wouldn't do it because they want to cheat. The bill says you cannot, it's against the law for you to ask a person, may I please see your voter ID when he votes? What is our country coming to?
Only 3 weeks to go to the election. Will you commit now to respecting and encouraging a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, you had a peaceful transfer of power.
You had a peaceful transfer of power. You had a peaceful. Come on, President Trump. You had a peaceful transfer of power compared with Venezuela, but it was by far the worst transfer of power for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that because this is what they like to do. This is what they like to do.
当主持人觉得他自己很牛，说你这样不对那样不对，川普就毫不客气的说，他说你们每一个预测都是错的，你这一辈子都没干过一个正确的预测。我们也可以看一下这一段。
What does the Wall Street Journal know? I'm meeting with them tomorrow. What does the Wall Street Journal know? They've been wrong about everything. So have you, by the way. You've been wrong about
You're trying to turn this. You've
been wrong.
No, you're trying to turn this into debate. There are business people. There are business
you're wrong.
people.
You've been wrong all your life on this stuff.
所以川普的再一次的验证了，就是他对所有经济问题的 真知灼见，只有亲自在商场上打滚几十年的人才能够回答出这样的问题。这也是为什么就是这个经济论坛其实也邀请了哈里斯去做访问，他拒绝了的一个原因。从这个角度你都可以看出哈里斯是多么的不堪一击。OK， 这是今天的播报，感谢您的收看，加油。